Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here today with us. Welcome to our Americorps State and National Information session on our FY 2022 Tribal Grants Opportunity. We're so excited that you've taken some time out of your day to join us to learn more about this opportunity. My name is Colleen Holohan, and I am the Policy and Procedure Specialist at Americorps State and National, and I'm joined by my State and National colleagues, Sumika Petrowski and Seda Lindsay, who will be joining me with support in the Q&A. Today, we'll provide a brief introduction of Americorps State and National, followed by an overview of our tribal grants opportunity. We'll talk about our planning grants, and we'll review critical elements of the Notice of Funding Opportunity, or the NOFO as we'll refer to it, and application information. This presentation is primarily focused on program, and we'll also be providing live webinars on budget, development, performance measures, and evaluation best practices. Our budget development webinar actually was last week. Tomorrow, we're going to be having a budget Q&A, and our performance measure and evidence workshops are next week. So feel free to check out the NOFO page of our website for more information on those opportunities as well. First, we'll get started by providing an overview of our agency, Americorps. Americorps is the federal agency connecting individuals and organizations through national service and volunteering to tackle the nation's most pressing challenges. We do this by awarding grants to eligible entities and organizations to recruit individuals to serve or volunteer in communities across the country. To get started, I'd like to share this brief video highlighting our different Americorps programs.
As Americorps members and volunteers, we do more than talk about our core values. We take action and commit to making our community stronger.
At Americorps, my commitment to equity gives every student a strong start.
Our compassion brings food and friendship to neighbors in need.
My determination protects parks in my community.
Now more than ever, your community needs you. What's at your core? Learn more at americorps.gov.
So just a very brief overview of a vast array of programs, but we thought that a visual is always helpful. Americorps programs span various impact areas, including environmental stewardship, education, healthy futures, disaster response, economic opportunity, and veteran and military families. As you think about needs in your own community, consider how Americorps may be able to support you. Americorps also offers a wide variety of partnership opportunities, and each have unique components that may meet your community needs. Americorps State and National is the largest of all of our programs and hosts this tribal grants opportunity. We provide grants to eligible organizations to meet the needs in education, health, the environment, economic opportunity, veteran services, and disaster services. Americorps Vista provides full-time Americorps members to organizations to create and expand programs that bring low-income individuals and communities out of poverty. These projects are typically capacity building focused. The Americorps NCCC program is a full-time residential program for individuals ages 18 to 24 who engage in short-term service projects across the country. The NCCC operates on a regional basis with 5 campuses in different parts of the country. NCCC Americorps members serve on teams and complete projects in the geographic regions served by their NCCC campus. The NCCC program also leads our agency disaster services initiative, FEMA Corps. And last but not least, our Americorps Seniors program specifically engages volunteers ages 55 and older to serve their communities. We also offer funding opportunities for projects for our MLK and 9/11 days of service, and our Volunteer Generation Fund invests in volunteer management practices that increase both volunteer recruitment and retention. Partners can also apply for research grants through our Office of Research and Evaluation. More information and details on all of these partnership opportunities can be found at americorps.gov. Now we'll move into providing more detail on Americorps State and National. We also refer to it as ASN. Once again, ASN is the program that is managing this tribal grants funding opportunity. Americorps State and National awards grants to local nonprofits, local and state government, Indian tribes, and institutions of higher education. Our grant recipients provide opportunities to individuals, Americorps members, to serve in their communities. Since 1994, more than 1 million individuals have served as Americorps members. Myself and Seda and Sumika on this call included. So to give you a snapshot of some of our grantee projects, our grantees design programs to meet the most pressing needs in their communities. Specific examples of tribal grantee projects in the past have included assisting community members in navigating and obtaining employment and training opportunities, leading community weatherization and minor construction projects, improving academic engagement of students on a reservation and providing language immersion class support, recruiting volunteers to restore water and fish habitats on reservation land, leading community health outreach related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and supporting programs combating the effects of obesity and diabetes in the communities. This list is certainly not exhaustive, and there are many ways you can utilize our funding for your programs. Recipient organizations known as grantees design activities for Americorps members that demonstrate an evidence-based or evidence-informed approach to strengthening communities and solving problems. ASN grants allow organizations to more effectively address community needs by using Americorps resources to support existing programs. Examples of this could include utilizing Americorps members to provide additional supports in after-school programs or developing and supporting food programs. Americorps also allows organizations to reach previously underserved communities and expand their activities beyond what they were able to do without Americorps. Examples of this could include creating a new program to provide academic coaching and GED prep support to young people, or recruiting volunteers to expand career services training provided for community members. It's important to note that Americorps state and national funds cannot be used to duplicate, displace, or supplant resources that exist in a community. Americorps members or grant funds can help meet unmet needs or can expand an organization's ability to better address community needs, but they don't take the place of community resources that already exist. As an agency, we are committed to working on a nation-to-nation basis with tribal nations and upholding the federal government's tribal trust responsibility. Our specific priorities for this grant competition are as follows. Efforts to help local communities respond to and recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Applicants here may propose programming to aid communities in their efforts to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, including outcomes of COVID-19 on student subgroups described in the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Educational opportunity and economic mobility for communities experiencing persistent unemployment or underemployment and students experiencing homelessness or those in foster care. Programs that prioritize civic engagement or social cohesion. Economic opportunity, including digital skills and increased access to broadband. Education, including improving student academic performance in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, traditional knowledge and indigenous language, and/or serving students who attend Bureau of Indian Education schools. Veterans and military families, caregivers, and survivors, a program model that improves the well-being of military families, caregivers, and survivors. And finally, environmental stewardship and climate change, including renewable energy and energy efficiency, building community resilience, sustainable food systems and agriculture, water, wastewater, and conservation and habitat preservation. To receive priority consideration, applicants must show that a priority area is a significant part of the program focus and intended outcomes. Proposing programs that receive priority consideration does not guarantee funding. A A partnership with ASN provides the opportunity to utilize the assets and resources of your community to create a new program or build upon an existing program to meet pressing needs. Here in this quote, a tribal grantee shares their perspective on how a partnership with Americorps allowed them to create a GED program to support members who had left high school before completion. When reflecting on how you can utilize Americorps members to help your community, consider the following. How is your community currently tackling challenges and needs? And how can Americorps members support those efforts? How could Americorps members support you in increasing the capacity of the services you currently provide? What skills and training could your organization provide for Americorps members? And what support could you provide the members? Now we'll specifically talk about ASN's tribal grants opportunity and requirements. Each year, 1% of Americorps funding is set aside specifically for federally recognized Indian tribes. The total amount changes depending on the size of the appropriation and other factors. In FY21, Americorps State and National invested $2.3 million of funding for 11 grantee partners. These partners hosted 152 Americorps members. Our smallest grant awarded was just over $53,000, supporting 10 Americorps members, and our largest grant was $458,000, supporting 20 Americorps members. The Code of Federal Regulations defines Indian tribe as any Indian tribe, band, nation, or other organized group or community, including any Alaska Native village or regional or village corporation as defined in or established pursuant to the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, which is recognized as eligible for the special programs and services provided by the United States to Indians because of their status as Indians. In addition to Indian tribes being eligible, tribal organizations that are controlled, sanctioned, or chartered by federally recognized Indian tribes are also eligible to apply. An entity that desires to apply for a grant as a tribal organization on behalf of a federally recognized tribe or multiple specific federally recognized tribes must submit a sanctioning resolution adopted by the tribal council or a comparable tribal governing body of each tribe. The resolution must identify the nonprofit by name as a tribal organization, and it must authorize the nonprofit organization to act on behalf of and include the tribe in an Americorps grant application for the purpose of conducting the activities and providing the services described in the application. Funded Americorps state and national grantees are responsible for the following aspects of program management: recruiting, interviewing, and selecting your Americorps members, providing regular training and supervision to the members, tracking and reporting on performance measures that capture significant program outputs and outcomes, and finally, managing fiscal and reporting requirements. Awarded grantees will be supported by an agency portfolio manager who will provide resources and technical assistance in these areas. All applications must also include at least one aligned performance measure, an output and an outcome that corresponds to the proposed primary intervention. This may be a national performance measure or an applicant-determined measure. See the performance measure instructions for details about the performance measure requirements and selection rules. You can also attend one of our webinars that I referenced at the start next week, and all of the information on those webinars is on our NOFO page. Americorps anticipates making 3-year program operating grants and 1-year planning grants. The agency generally makes an initial award for the first year of the period of performance based on a 1-year budget. Continuation awards for subsequent years are not guaranteed as they depend upon the satisfactory performance. Applicants may apply for either a cost reimbursement or fixed amount type of award. However, new applicants are only able to apply for cost reimbursement funds. For cost reimbursement grants, applicants are required to match funds based on a chart in our NOFO. The applicant's match can be non-Americorps cash and/or in-kind contributions. For fixed grants, there's no match requirement. However, Americorps does not provide all the funds necessary to operate the program. Therefore, organizations should raise the additional revenue required to operate their program. Through these awards, the following slot types are available: full-time, three-quarter time, half-time, reduced half-time, quarter time, minimum time, and abbreviated time. I'll reference what each of these slot types mean in the next slide. For cost reimbursement, a budget submission is required and grantees will have financial reporting requirements. Availability of funds is not linked to enrollment, and retention of awarded member slots, referred to as member service years or MSY, for cost reimbursement grants. I do see a question in the Q&A. We're going to get all of your questions at the end of the presentation. So if you have any additional questions and you want to just put them in the Q&A so you don't forget, feel free to go ahead and do so. Americorps uses the term member service year, or MSY, for program budgeting. One MSY is equivalent to a full-time Americorps position serving at least 1,700 hours. For example, one full-time member serving 1,700 hours equals one MSY, and 17 abbreviated time members would also equal one MSY. The maximum funding amount an applicant may request from Americorps per MSY is determined on an annual basis. This chart here shows the various terms of service or slot types that you can use in designing your program and the minimum number of hours a member must complete in serving that slot. You should consider what types of member service terms best support your program design in addressing critical community needs. Most Americorps members have up to 12 months to complete their term of service. The actual term may be shorter and is rarely longer than 12 months. This is all dependent on your program design. Specific terms of service that are tied to actual Americorps members are also referred to as slots. You can design a program utilizing one or multiple types of slots. A 900 or 675 hour slot might be utilized by a program engaging college students in service during the academic year. A 1,700 hour slot is equivalent to 35 to 40 hours a week over a 52-week span. In designing your Americorps program, you should review the intensity of the intervention you are proposing, as well as the variety of responsibilities your members will have. Then you would determine the number and type of member positions you will need to effectively impact the community or communities where your program will serve. Our one-year grant opportunity is for a planning grant. A planning grant provides support to a grant recipient to develop an Americorps program that will engage Americorps members in implementing evidence-based interventions to solve community problems. Grant recipients are awarded up to $75,000 for a 12-month planning period and are expected to be better prepared to compete for an Americorps program grant in the following grant cycle. A planning grant may not be used to support Americorps members. Planning grants are a great opportunity to expand upon an idea you may have for an Americorps program and gain access to agency staff and technical assistance while mapping out your program idea. Applicants for planning grants will apply for a cost reimbursement grant. The project period is no more than a year, with a start date proposed by the applicant, and the project start date may not occur prior to the date Americorps awards the grant. Here are a few examples of how a planning grant may be utilized. Creating a family literacy program, designing a culturally competent healthcare intervention program, or developing a multi-service program to meet tribal needs around education, health, and workforce development. These are just a few examples. As we mentioned in our previous slide, planning grants serve the purpose of developing an Americorps program based on an idea or a community need. Moving right along, we'll transition into our FY22 Tribal Grants Competition and more information about applying for funds. The notice of funding is soliciting for program grants and planning grants and can be found on the page linked above on the slide and in the chat as well. In addition to the notice, you can also find the mandatory supplemental information, which is basically a glossary of all the terms in the NOFO, application and performance measure instructions, and information about additional technical assistance calls on this page. In the agency's web-based management system called eGrants, applicants will enter the following components of a complete application. The standard form 424 face sheet. This is automatically generated when applicants complete the data elements in the system. Then you'll complete several narratives. The executive summary, which is a brief description of the proposed program design section, where you'll provide information on the program's theory of change, evidence base, priorities, and member experience. Organizational capability, where you'll provide information on organizational background and staffing, compliance and accountability, organizational culture and member supervision. Cost effectiveness and budget adequacy, which is your budget. And finally, an evaluation plan if applicable. This is only applicable for recompeting grantees. Your application will also include a logic model, the standard form 424A budget, performance measures, and authorization, assurances, and certification. Note that the application criteria requirements for planning grants slightly differ from this slide. Please see page 25 of the NOFO for planning grant details. Applications must not exceed 10 double-spaced pages for the narratives. Planning grants may not exceed no more than 7 pages. The application sections that count toward the page limit are the SF424 face sheet, the executive summary, and the program design, organizational capability, and cost effectiveness and budget adequacy narratives. The application page limit does not include the budget, performance measures, or any required additional documents. The logic model may not exceed 3 pages when printed with the application from the Review tab in the agency's web-based management system. Please note that the length of the application as a word processing document may differ from the length of the document printed out from the system. The character limits in eGrants do not align with page limits set in the notice. We strongly encourage applicants to print out the application from the Review and Submit tab in eGrants prior to submission in order to confirm that the application does not exceed the page limit. Americorps will not consider the results of any alternative printing methods when determining if an application complies with the page limit. Reviewers will also not consider material that is over the page limit, even if eGrants allows applicants to enter and submit additional text. Each applicant must describe a project that will deploy Americorps members effectively to solve a significant community problem. Americorps urges applicants to submit high-quality applications that carefully follow the guidance in this notice and in the application instructions. The quality of an application will be an important factor in determining whether an organization will receive funding. The review criteria categories are consistent across all applications, while the subcategories are different for planning grants as they do not have members or MSY. The review criteria categories are as follows: the executive summary at 0%, program design at 50%, organizational capability at 25%, and cost effectiveness and budget adequacy at 25%. The Americorps state and national cost per MSY is determined by dividing the Americorps share of budgeted grant costs by the number of MSYs requested. It does not include childcare or the value of the education award a member may earn. The maximum amount an applicant may request from Americorps state and national per MSY is determined on an annual basis. The standard maximum cost per MSY for cost reimbursement tribal grantees is listed here as $21,600. Americorps requires professional core programs to cover the operating expenses associated with the Americorps program through non-Americorps resources. The agency will only consider operating funds of up to $1,000 per MSY if an applicant is able to demonstrate significant organizational financial need. There are 2 opportunities to request support for matching requirements in this application process. The first is ARP cash match replacement funds. Americorps' American Rescue Plan funds are available to replace cash match identified in the grantee share of the budget. At the time of application, applicants, new, recompete, and continuation applicants should identify the amount of their match replacement request, if applicable, by entering it into the clarification information section of the application and including it in the source of funds section on the budget. The second is a match waiver. Americorps recognizes that some grantees continue to experience hardships securing matching resources. As a result, we're returning to the longstanding prior practice that is rooted in the applicable regulations in 45 CFR for Americorps state and national programs, and we created a centralized process for ASN grantees to apply for match waivers. It's important to note that requests should be submitted only during the last year of the project period for the direct program or the commission prime. Americorps expects that grantees will do their due diligence throughout the entire project period so that the overall match will be met by the end of the 3rd year. However, if circumstances are that grantees are unable to secure the required match in year 1 or year 2 of their project period, they may request a waiver in year 3 of the direct program or commission prime. Match waivers should not be requested in year 1 or 2 of a project period. Please visit our NOFO page or click on the link that we'll put into the chat for more information on match waivers. Applicants must submit applications electronically via eGrants. Americorps recommends that applicants create an eGrants account and begin the application process at least 3 weeks before the deadline. Applicants should draft the application as a Word document, then copy and paste the text into the appropriate eGrants field no later than 10 days before the deadline. The applicant's authorized representative must be the person who submits the application. The authorized representative must use their own eGrants account to sign and submit the application. A copy of the governing body's authorization for this official representative to sign must be on file in the applicant's office. If you encounter any issues with eGrants, we encourage you to contact the Americorps hotline. The number for the hotline is on our website, or via eGrants questions, also linked through our website NOFO page. The Americorps hotline hours are also posted on the page. As I mentioned earlier, we have an array of training and technical assistance calls taking place for this NOFO opportunity. For the calls that have already happened, the links to the recordings of those calls are on our website. We'll also be holding some open Q&A calls in April, including that budget office hour tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Registration for all of these sessions are on our website. And here are the links to our applicant resources. Please remember the notice should be read together with the Americorps regulations, the mandatory supplemental guidance, the application instructions, and the performance measure instructions. All of these documents are available on the 2022 Americorps State and National Notice page on our website funding opportunity page. If you have any questions throughout the process, you can contact Americorps Grants at cns.gov, or you can also contact a regional representative. Regional representative information is also on the NOFO page. So now we can take a moment to address any questions that may have come in. And I think my friends Sumika and Seda have been hard at work responding already, possibly. So what kind of questions do we have, Seda and Sumika?
Yes, I do have one question that came in. Can a non-tribal organization partner with a tribal organization to submit a planning grant to plan a more competitive grant for a collaborative program that both organizations will implement together?
So the answer to the question, you would have to, the tribe would have to be the applicant, or as the non-tribal partner, you would have to submit that sanctioning letter. The details I saw, I think in the chat, there might have been a question that popped up about more information on sanctioning. So you can certainly partner together. If the tribal organization was the lead applicant, that was a federally recognized tribe that was eligible. That would be great. If the non-tribal organization partner was the lead applicant, then they would need to submit that sanctioning letter. Thanks for your question. Any other questions? I see a question around requirements. If you're referring to requirements for the opportunity or eligibility requirements, if you want to provide either in the chat, or we can unmute you if you have more information on your question.
Hi, Colleen. You might have actually just answered it. The clarification about was sanctioning requirements. So I believe you shared that in your last answer. But again, if we did not answer your question correctly, feel free to let us know.
Great. Thanks, Tamika.
And Colleen, I see a question just came up in the chat. Can you explain the planning grant and the 3-year funding difference again, real quick?
Yes. So a planning grant is a 1-year grant. It's a cost reimbursement grant. And there's a limit in funding. And so the purpose of the planning grant would be for you to take a year to come up with, or you would propose an idea for a program, and you would use the year to begin building out the different components of your program. So meeting with different members of the community to design what that program could look like, starting to build the infrastructure for the program. It does not include funding for actual Americorps members. So after the 1 year of the planning grant, you would have the opportunity to then apply for a 3-year grant, which would host Americorps members. So the 3-year grant, also a cost reimbursement grant, if you're a new applicant, would provide you with the opportunity to propose to us a program design, and the funding you would receive would be for 3 years to support the actual Americorps members implementing the proposed activities or projects. Samika, feel free to weigh in if you have anything else to add to that.
No, I think you covered it great. I am going to segue to our next question, which is, can you talk more about the kinds of environmental projects that would be considered? So Colleen, if you have any ideas of either projects that are currently funded or just some ideas, I guess folks want a little bit more ideas around that type of funding priority.
Sure. So I'm going to go back into my slide notes, because I did reference a few different environmental types of projects. So I'm just going to hop to those notes if you give me a minute. The beauty of partnering with Americorps State and National is really, we really want you to think critically about what the specific needs are in your community. So if you're thinking specifically around environment, what are the needs in your community? And then how could a group or a team of Americorps members support in addressing that need? So some of the environmental projects that we have here, looking in my my notes. So one of our priority areas is environmental stewardship and climate change. So those are two very broad categories around projects. We've had members do things like trail restoration. We've had members do weatherization projects. We've had members do environmental education. So working with young people. Seda or Sumika, any other examples of tribal environmental projects you can think of?
I think you covered it, and I'm actually answering another question on the other end. So I will let you continue on, and maybe Seda has anything to add.
I don't, but we did have another question come into the chat. It was, does Americorps provide tech support or assistance in helping agencies secure the sanctioning letters?
So we do not have any specific templates or support of that nature. I would encourage you to reach out to if you had something very specific you wanted to talk through. We understand that the processes for the sanctioning will vary based on the community that you're looking to partner with. So we encourage you to contact the regional contact in your area if you're interested in kind of talking through what you're looking to do and what your approach is, and they will be able to support. And I just received another message about another example of an environmental program would be a food sovereignty program. And thanks to Josh in the chat, we've had members build and support community gardening efforts as well.
I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat. We did have a follow-up, Colleen, when you were talking about lovely planning grants, if we advise that applicants apply those first. I responded in the chat, but feel free to add anything additional, Colleen or Seda. It's really what meets your needs as an organization, but as the name planning does denote, it does help you set up and prepare for running a full Americorps program, and it could be beneficial if you're a brand new applicant. So it is something for you to consider, but it is not a requirement that you must do a planning grant first in order to have an operating grant.
Thanks, Sumika. Yes, I would agree with everything that Sumika said. Some folks just assume because we have a planning grant that they have to do that first. You certainly don't have to do that. I think it's about assessing the infrastructure of your organization and the sort of where you're at with the idea for your program or your project, and would a year of support in planning help you take it to the next level, or maybe you're ready to do it right now and you want to jump right in, and then you could apply for a 3-year operational grant.
We have another question in the chat, and also if you want to throw your questions in the Q&A so we can track them too, but I have my eyes open on both boxes, but we have, what are the stats on applicants and awards on competitions and how many awards? Might need some clarification. I'm not sure if Colleen has that data handy, but Colleen?
Yep, the data that I have with me right now is the data that I read in the previous slide, so I can read that again if that would be helpful. And it's just regarding our 1% set aside and the projects that we have supported in this past year. So we supported in FY21, we provided over $2.3 million of funding for 11 different partners. And the smallest award was $53,000 for 10 members. And then we had a larger award over $450,000 for 20 members. So it's certainly a range. And we're hopeful to get a lot of applications for this upcoming year.
There's another question in the chat around if art and dance programs would fall under education.
So that would be really what the art and dance programs were doing and how they link to education. So you could tell us in your narrative and focus on your community need and what the activities were. If there was a linkage between them and education, you would sort of share that with us. Something to note is that we do have priorities. The project you propose does not necessarily have to fall under one of those priorities. So it's really up to you in sharing with us what are the needs of the community and how will this project that you're proposing meet those needs.
Colleen, I see another question regarding the sanctioning letter in the Q&A. Can you share what should be included in that sanctioning letter to show the lead agency is authorized to work on behalf of the tribal organization?
Yes, all of that information is included in the NOFO. So if you look in the NOFO, you'll see a summary of what needs to be in that letter.
We have a question in the chat. How have applicants in the past demonstrated community need?
So the questions in the narrative, if you haven't checked out the application instructions or the NOFO specifically yet, the questions will really guide how you'll respond to the needs. So there are questions around the different demographics in your community, history of what the need is and why there's a need, and then you'll sort of respond with how you'll meet the need. So if you check out the application instructions specifically in the narrative questions, you'll see what we're looking for you to respond to in that section. These are all really great questions. Thank you for asking them, and feel free to keep them coming if you have more. So I see a question in the chat around priorities. Jeff, are you able to go back to that slide? I believe that priorities are on slide 11. Let's see if we can, there we go. Thanks, Jeff. So the answer to your question is right there. The priorities are on this slide, and they are also in the NOFO. Any other questions? Well, we'll hang on for another couple minutes if any questions roll in. But just a few reminders that if you visit the NOFO page, which we put in the chat several times at this point, you will find all of the application materials. So the NOFO, the mandatory supplemental information, the performance measure instructions. You can email Americorps grants at cns.gov with any specific questions. We will be publishing this recording on the website in the next couple of days, so you'll be able to find this information as well as the recording from the session we did last month. And we really encourage you to not be a stranger. So if you're planning to apply and you have more questions, you can email us, you can connect with a regional contact. You can also attend our Q&As that we're going to be happening. So the one tomorrow is specifically focused on budget, but then I believe we have a handful more in April that are just open Q&A. So just come with your questions, and we have a team of folks ready to respond and answer those questions for you. We're also going to be hosting a grantee panel. So next month, and the information on that is on our website as well. So that's going to be, we have, I think, 2 current tribal grantees are going to be sharing about their program and how they run their program, and you can sort of ask any questions or tips that you have as you're planning your design. So encourage folks to join us at that as well. For tomorrow's webinar, I see another question in the chat. All of the registration links are on that NOFO page. So if you go there, that's your one-stop shop. You can sign up for everything that we have left that's open, and we'd love to see you there. And thank you, Sumika and Seda, for being on top of it on the chat and getting all those links in there for everybody so everyone can get all signed up. Okay, last call for questions. And I'm not seeing any, so I think we'll close out here. Thank you all again so much for joining us and for spending some time with us today to learn more about this exciting opportunity. We look forward to reviewing your application and supporting you with any questions you might have in the coming weeks and months as we lead up to the deadline. So thank you again, and wishing you all a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.